everyone, this is Erin Gates with Lizzie Knits and Three Birds Yarn Studio, and today I want to show you how to knit in the round and kind of explain the process a little bit. Let's just dive right in, and then I'll do some explanations once the tutorial is finished. But I have my set of circular needles, and circular needles are just like regular straight needles, but they're attached with a cord. All right, so let's just dive right in. I'm gonna cast on using a long tail cast on. So we leave a tail a little bit, and I do have a separate video for a long tail cast on if you're interested. But for this demo, let's leave a generous tail just so I don't run out. I'm using 16-inch circular needles, and that would be perfect for knitting a hat. And 16 inches means the length of the cord, including the needle tips. Okay, so we pick up. And just like casting on with a straight needle, you just grab one of the sides. So we're not going to deal with this side yet. One of the sides, and let's start casting on. I am going to cast on 70 stitches. And let's see, just cast on as normal. Your stitches are going to start traveling down the needle. Let me cast on 70, and I'll be right back. Okay, here I am. I just finished. Here's my 70 stitches. And like I said, if I was working for a pattern, let's just pretend mine called for 70. All right, so the next thing, so we're not knitting flat, you see, like we want to knit in a circle. So these are gonna have to get connected. Turned around here. They're gonna have to get connected. So let's get the tail out of the way for one. So we don't want to knit with the tail, and I left too much, but that's all right. And what I'm going to do before we start, so this is my cast on edge now, and before we start round one, we're going to have to join these together so there's not any gaps. You really could, so you can skip this step that I'm going to show you. I just like this extra join. You really could start knitting, but what I'm going to do for my join, because then, like I said, it makes the edge a lot smoother. I'm going to cast on one extra stitch than what my count is supposed to be at. So technically I have 71 now. And what I'm going to do is take the stitch from the left needle, move it over, and I'm going to take the first stitch from the right needle and move it over that stitch and off. And we lose that stitch. That's why we cast on one extra, because we're going to drop it anyways. So now I'm ready. Look, they're connected. And I'm ready to start knitting in the round. So real quick, so now you can see we're going to start going in a circle. Not flat, like when you're flat knitting, you would knit to the end, and that's the end of your row. Then you flip it, and then that's the start of row 2. With knitting in the round, I'm going to start, instead of saying rows, we say rounds. I'm going to start round 1 now, and I'm going to work all 70 of these stitches and then come back to my starting point right here. And that would complete round 1. And then when I start to go again, that'll be the start of round 2. But one thing you really need here is a stitch marker, because we need to remember where we started and stopped. So I'm going to have a little stitch marker, and these come in all shapes and sizes, or you can make a knot of some scrap yarn, a little loop, just to keep on your needles. So the stitch marker goes here. So when I start to knit, I'm starting fresh. The stitch marker is behind, like already out of the way, and we start to knit just normal knit stitches in a circular motion though. Even though these, this might seem like, now that your needles are connected in circular, it might throw you off a little bit, but really only focus on the 2 needle tips here like you would normally knit with straight needles. So I'm just going to start knitting across my row, and now I have 70 stitches, so this round is going to be 70 stitches. Or if you're following a pattern, then it would say round 1 or whatever design you're working with. But I'm just doing straight knit stitches for this tutorial. Okay, let me work around, and I'm going to show you then what happens when we get back to this starting point. All right, so a little fast forwarding here. I've been knitting, and now I am nearing the stitch markers coming back around again. So I'm getting to the end of round 1 here. So almost, let's see, 2 more stitches of round 1, last stitch. Okay, and now I've reached my stitch marker. So round 1 is done. And with a stitch marker, you don't knit through the stitch marker, you don't do anything. The stitch marker technically, it does not have yarn running through it. I simply pass the stitch marker over to the right needle, and now this is the first stitch of round 2. So we can keep going, and that is like reading a pattern, and now I'm working on round 2, like writing a pattern with straight knitting, row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4. So now same with knitting in the round 1, round 2, and it's like now that I started round 2, it's like I'm jumping up a round now. A big confusing issue with knitting in the round is that it's like it never stops. It's not a continuous spiral like corkscrew where we go. It is one line, and then you jump up a level, and then you're to the next line. So that is why the stitch marker is so important, because we need to know when you are advancing to the next round. So now I have a little more work behind me, because versus what I just finished, I'm adding now another level of stitches, and I'll do the exact same thing. I'm gonna knit. I got 70 stitches all the way around. I'm gonna knit, and then I'll get here and do the same thing. We knit to the end, slip the marker, and then this would be the start then of round 3. So just a little, I know that for beginners who've never knit in the round, that can seem kind of intimidating. I've heard that from people, like just understanding the concept. Yeah, it's not a continuous spiral. There are actually like levels, and those are your rows. They're just in the round and connected. And all right, so that's kind of the process. But I kind of want to touch in of like, why do we knit in the round? For one, this might be very obvious, especially a hat, there's no seams. So I'm making my fabric here, there won't be any seams, and you won't have to stitch any pieces together to make your final 3-dimensional fabric or project. Another thing I want to talk about is, actually I'm gonna take this off real quick and show you. Circular needles come in, yeah, I'm done with this. Circular needles come in many different lengths. These, if you can see here, I have an interchangeable set here. So I can put different needle sizes on. Also, another tip with the interchangeable sets is you can add, usually your set comes with different lengths of cord. Like I have sets where the cords are like 40 inches, not 40, something really long. Now I'm drawing a blank, but really long circular needles. And that would be like if I'm making a sweater. So this cord would reach the circumference of my body. So that's when, because the body of a sweater is still in a circular motion. We don't want seams, but it needs to be long enough. Another thing, I told you this is 16 inches, and that's standard for like hats, but there's smaller ones with shorter tips too, and that would be for making like socks. So either way, you find the length of the cords that suits your project best, and if you're reading a pattern, they should specify the needle size. They would say like these are US 10 circular needles with a 16-inch cord, or it should instruct you of what you're supposed to be using. But that's about it on the knitting in the round. Yeah, I hope that takes a little of the mystery away, and main thing, don't forget your stitch marker. Okay, thanks so much for watching.